You may have noticed that Claude Code can't read PDFs, Word documents, or even Excel spreadsheets on its own. It either needs to install a Python library or find a workaround, which isn't great if you're trying to extract accurate data from an agent. But Firecrawl does have a parse endpoint that can read any of these documents and turn them into clean LLM-ready data for any of your agents. Let's see how it works. Firecrawl's parse feature is designed for local files or files behind a private URL. We'll talk more about why later, but it currently supports 9 different file formats, including PDFs, Word documents, and Excel spreadsheets. But how does it give Claude or any other agent the ability to read these files? Well, under the hood, Firecrawl uses its own Rust-powered document parser like FirePDF for PDF files, which means the process is super fast no matter if you're on desktop or mobile because it uses Firecrawl servers. And it also supports zero data retention, keeping your data private unless of course you plan to self-host Firecrawl. In that case, it just reads the files locally. Basically, this endpoint is perfect for RAG pipelines, allowing document uploads in AI-powered chatbots and turning a folder of documents into searchable markdown. In fact, let's go through a quick demo. And before we do, make sure you hit subscribe if you're enjoying this type of content. So you could use parse with the official Firecrawl SDKs, with curl, or with the CLI, but for this demo, we're going to be using the MCP server, which I've already installed for Claude Code using this command, but you can do so even if you don't have a Firecrawl API key. We're going to use this PDF, which is US Census information for 2020. So now I'm going to tell Claude to read the Census PDF using Firecrawl and summarize page 41, which is the page containing this table. So now it's found the PDF, and now it's using the parse command in the Firecrawl MCP server to read the file, which it needs to do by running the upload command. And now it gives me a summary of page 41, telling me that it contains a table which breaks down census return rates, split across certain return modes like internet, paper, and phone. But if we were to run the same prompt using Claude Code without Firecrawl, we can see it first installs Poppler using Brew, and then imports some Python-specific tools before giving me a summary. Now, I actually gave it a similar prompt in Claude Desktop, and you can see here it failed a bunch of times before running a command to install some specific Python libraries, again, pypdf, before it gave me a summary. So even though this does kind of work in Claude Code because it has access to download specific Python libraries, who knows if every user is going to give Claude this kind of access, and also if these specific Python libraries will always be secure. Not to mention, Claude Code has had issues in the past when it comes to extracting tables from PDFs. So it's not always the most reliable option. Let's go through another demo. Here is a financial sample dataset for Power BI provided by Microsoft. So here I'm going to tell Claude to read the financial spreadsheet and tell me how many units of this product were sold in Mexico. Again, it uploads the file and then gives me the correct information. But if I try it with Claude Code, it runs a background agent to inspect its contents, which again works by installing a Python library that I didn't give it permission to install, which isn't great if you don't want to install any third-party tools. Now let's go through one final demo, which is going to combine everything we've learned in the previous demos. So here I have a folder that contains a combination of PDFs and Excel spreadsheets. And what I'm going to do is get Firecrawl to pass all this information into a single markdown file and then ask questions from it. Now, to make things easier, I'm actually going to use the Firecrawl CLI with skills to give us more visibility on what's going on. This will make more sense a bit later. So I've given it a prompt to pass every file in this folder and combine the results into a single markdown file called combined knowledge base and telling us the source of the information. So if I let Claude work, here it's going to automatically use the Firecrawl Parse skill, which by default will already pass each file to a .firecrawl directory, and then it's going to merge those files into one called combined knowledge base. And if we open it, it contains the source of where it got the information from, and below we have the markdown containing all the data. Now, the benefit of using the CLI that automatically creates this Firecrawl directory to put documents in is if you've already passed a document, it can just get it again from here instead of passing it again from scratch. So now with that information in place, I can create a new Claude Code session and give it a prompt to use the newly created markdown file and tell me details about California's response to the census. And we can see it finds the document, it greps for California, and also response rate, giving me a summary telling me that overall rates were low, and it calls this out as a real limitation. So that's a very quick demo of the parse endpoint, and I didn't even get around to going through some other cool features like being able to redact personally identifiable information, forcing OCR for scanned documents, and to remove base64 images from documents that contain them. Now, I did mention earlier that the parse endpoint is perfect for local or documents behind a private URL. But what about documents that live behind a public URL? Well, for that, you could use Firecrawl's scrape endpoint, where Firecrawl will detect the document type based on the URL and run it through the same document parsing pipeline as the parse endpoint. But the scrape endpoint does way more than just parsing documents, and you can learn all about it in the next video.